Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Gaurav Sharma and with me is Renuka, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India reiterates continued support including humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. New Delhi conveys strong protest on China's illegal construction activities along the border areas. China and US agree to boost climate cooperation. India issues new guidelines for international travel. NASA and SpaceX launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station. 15 films announced for the international competition at the 52nd International Film Festival of India to be held in Goa. And in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, second semi-final underway between Pakistan and Australia in Dubai. As India created history by administering 100 crore vaccine doses against COVID-19, All India Radio salutes all the doctors, nurses, other frontline workers and all those who got vaccinated and made this possible. Even though the country has achieved this feat, we caution our listeners that the battle against COVID-19 is not yet over. We appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and also help others get vaccinated. During the festival season, please follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact the national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now, the news in detail. The External Affairs Ministry has asserted India's continued support to the people of Afghanistan. External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Mr. Arindam Bagchi said that at the Delhi Regional Security Dialogue held on Wednesday, the very serious humanitarian situation in Afghanistan was discussed at length. A report.
The Delhi Regional Security Dialogue on Afghanistan emphasized that Afghanistan's territory should not be used for sheltering, training, planning or financing any terrorist acts. The meeting condemned all terrorist activities in the strongest terms and reaffirmed their firm commitment to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. In his remarks at the event, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval reiterated that India is keenly watching the developments in Afghanistan.
This is a time for close consultations amongst us, greater cooperation and interaction and coordination among the regional countries. I am confident that our deliberations will be productive, useful and will contribute to help the people of Afghanistan and enhance our collective security.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi appreciated the participation of the senior dignitaries in the Delhi Security Dialogue despite the challenges posed by the pandemic. He emphasized upon 4 aspects that countries in the region would need to focus on in the context of Afghanistan. These were the need for an inclusive government, a zero-tolerance stance about Afghan territory being used by terrorist groups, a strategy to counter trafficking of drugs and arms from Afghanistan, and addressing the increasingly critical humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. Speaking on Pakistan's decision to not attend the meet, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Mr. Arindam Bagchi said that it is a reflection of Pakistan's attitude on the Afghanistan situation.
पाकिस्तान को भी इनविटेशन दिया गया था, वो नहीं आए. इसमें मैं यही कहूंगा कि ऐसे इम्पोर्टेंट मीटिंग में नहीं आए तो इससे पता चल सकता है कि उनका किस तरह का रवैया है अफगानिस्तान के मुद्दे पर.
The External Affairs Ministry spokesman, reiterating the Delhi Declaration, expressed concern over the deteriorating socio-economic and humanitarian situation in Afghanistan and emphasized the need to provide urgent humanitarian assistance to the people of the country. Anuja Kumar for World News.
Meanwhile, China said on Wednesday that it will attend an extended Troika Plus meeting on Afghanistan convened by Pakistan after skipping a regional security dialogue hosted by India on the situation in Afghanistan, citing scheduling reasons. This meeting will be attended by senior officials from the US and Russia. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said at a regular press briefing that China's special envoy to Afghanistan will attend the meeting. The representatives of the 4 countries will also meet Afghanistan's acting foreign minister, Amir Khan Muttaqi, Pakistani media reported. The Indian government on Thursday said that India has neither accepted illegal Chinese occupation of its territory nor has it accepted unjustified Chinese claims. Asserting this at a media briefing in New Delhi, External Affairs Ministry spokesman Arindam Bagchi said that the government keeps constant watch on developments having a bearing on the nation's security and takes all measures to safeguard sovereignty and territorial integrity.
China has undertaken construction activities in the past several years along the border areas, including in the areas that it has illegally occupied over decades. India has neither accepted such illegal occupation of our territory, nor has it accepted the unjustified Chinese claims. Government has always conveyed its strong protest to such activities through diplomatic means and will continue to do so in the future. The government has also stepped up border infrastructure, which have provided much needed connectivity to the local population. Government remains committed to the objective of creating infrastructure along the border areas for the improvement of livelihood of its citizens, including in Arunachal Pradesh.
Mr. Bagchi said the government is committed to the objective of creating infrastructure along the border areas for improvement of livelihood in Arunachal Pradesh. He said the government has stepped up border infrastructure which has provided the much-needed connectivity for the local population.
Meanwhile, China's ruling Communist Party concluded its annual political meeting known as 6th Plenary Session on Thursday. The plenary passed a rare resolution reinforcing President Xi Jinping's stature as he looks set for an unprecedented third term as country's leader next year. Our Beijing correspondent reports that Xi is only the 3rd leader to have a historical resolution adopted during his presidency after Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping in 1945 and 1981 respectively. Passage of the resolution put Xi in the same league as Mao and Deng, who consolidated their power and acquired a special place in Chinese and Communist Party histories. China approved the removal of the 2-term limit of the presidency in 2018, effectively allowing Xi to remain in power indefinitely. The world's 2 largest emitters, China and the US, pledged to slow climate change and extend mutual cooperation towards climate action. The US-China Joint Glasgow Declaration on Enhancing Climate Action in 2020, announced on Wednesday, expressed alarm at the reports including the IPCC's 6th assessment report. They called for a stepped-up efforts to close the significant gap that remains to achieve the Paris Agreement target of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. In a statement, the 2 sides committed to pursuing efforts, including enhanced climate actions that raise ambition in the 2020s in the context of the Paris Agreement. Both countries expressed their intention to cooperate to enhance the measurement of methane emissions. China, however, had refused to join the US-EU-led Global Methane Pledge, which seeks to reduce the emission of methane, a potent greenhouse gas. The statement added that China will phase down coal consumption during their 15th 5-year plan and make best efforts to accelerate this work.
With the ongoing UN Climate Summit or the Conference of Parties, COP26 in Glasgow, All India Radio brings to you a ready reckoner every day. Under the COP26 Explainer series, we bring you daily the terms and concepts in use during the conference. Today, we shall discuss the Indo-US Partnership in Climate Change Mitigation. The relationship between India and the US has greatly improved over the last 2 decades. Working together to create clean energy and address climate change has been a cornerstone of this collaboration. This was further elevated by the signing of the Indo-US Strategic Clean Energy Partnership and Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue in April 2021. Elaborating the significance of the partnership, Director of the Indo-Pacific Office, USAID, John Smith-Sreen said, both India and US are working together to address the root causes and effects of climate change, which is the critical obstacle of modern civilization.
In India, we are working together with partners to address the root causes and effects of climate change. The United States and India will work together to achieve ambitious targets, which include India's goal of 500 gigawatts of installed renewable energy capacity by 2030, making new climate energy technologies widely available and increasing India's capacity to measure, manage, and adapt to the impacts of climate change.
China on Wednesday said that it is open for a dialogue and engagement with the Tibetan spiritual leader Dalai Lama, but negotiations are only about the personal future of the 14th Dalai Lama and not the Tibetan issue. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said that the 14th Dalai Lama should stop secessionist activities and should take concrete measures to win the trust of the central government and the Chinese people. The ministry was responding to a question on the Dalai Lama telling an online forum that he had no particular plans to meet President Xi Jinping and whether Beijing was willing to resume dialogue with the Tibetan government in exile. Speaking at an online forum hosted in Tokyo, Dalai Lama, 86, on Wednesday criticized the leaders of China, saying they don't understand the variety of different cultures there and that there is too much control by the main Han ethnic group.
India has asserted that the international community needs to walk the talk by ensuring a predictable and enhanced flow of resources to countries in the post-conflict phase. India's Minister for State for External Affairs, Dr. Rajkumar Ranjan Singh, speaking at the UN Security Council on Exclusion, Inequality and Conflict, called for the condemnation of terrorism in any form, anywhere in the world.
The spread of terrorism, particularly in the countries facing conflict, can reverse the effort of the international community. It is therefore imperative that terrorism in any form or manifestation is condemned and those supporting it any manner are held responsible.
India's Health Ministry has issued a new list of guidelines for international arrivals. These guidelines will be valid with effect from Friday until further orders are issued. All travellers will have to submit a self-declaration form on the online Air Suvidha portal www.newdelhiairport.in before the scheduled travel. They should upload a negative COVID-19 RT-PCR report and the test should have been conducted within 72 hours of undertaking the journey. On the basis of reciprocity, the travellers from all countries which provide quarantine-free entry to Indians are allowed certain relaxation on arrival. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on the COP26 road ahead and the roadblocks. In conversation are Dr. Shrikant K. Panigrahi, Director General of Indian Institute of Sustainable Development, and Chetan Chauhan, a journalist.
Mr. Panigrahi, first of all, what do you think has been the progress so far in 8 days of the Conference of Parties at Glasgow?
In fact, we had a very good beginning because all the head of the states came together and it was a good show. Out of it happened immediately after the G20 event from Rome, and so most of the leaders flight to Glasgow from Rome. And but there are 4 important G20 players were absent: China, Russia, Brazil, as well as Turkey. Then as you told, Indian Prime Minister announced very ambitious plan that India can achieve by 2030, and by 2070 will be achieving net zero and become carbon neutral. So that was a fantastic beginning, and India's pledge was highly appreciated throughout the globe, and people told that India's pledge among the most substantive and which was appreciated. Now, since more than a week has been passed, the major constraint is the carbon finance. Without finance, technology cannot flow, the climate actions cannot take place. The world is trying to recover after COVID-19, and economic challenges are there with all the countries. But irrespective of that, it is the question of life and death. So for the protect the humanity, we need, in terms of pledge, everybody is very keenly participating, and there is a spirit to come together with joining hands and for the protecting the planet. But the most important question of the hour is the climate finance. And if the finance comes, both the adaptation and mitigation related issues can be taken. Technology transfer will flow, and it is a very substantial requirement because in 2009 in Copenhagen, the developed world pledged $100 billion per year. And even, Chetan, you may be recollecting, Prime Minister Modi in his speech also mentioned that we require a $1 trillion climate finance support. We are doing the best. India also committed 10 million for the island states. So we are doing our best, but without developed nations who have historic responsibility, there is CVDR, there is equity, there is climate justice. All are the language of Paris Agreement, and which is not taken very seriously by the developed world. And so that has created a vacuum that as the whole world is worried how it can be achieved. And 2000, we developed nation must come forward for a new finance goal beyond 2025. And there should be adequate finance for compensation and for loss and damage. And also independent review of the promised $100 billion for a year of financing is very, very important, which is largely demanded by basic countries, by like-minded developing nations. And in different forums, there is a very loud voice, everyone can listen, that the developed world is lagging behind. There are charters declared by many organizations. We in IST also has declared a charter where we are basically saying that since 1850, considering that as the guiding climate mitigation starts from that, all the cumulative emissions needs to be considered to fix the CVDR and historical responsibility. If you see the historic emissions, US only accounts for 25% of the cumulative emissions, European Union 17%, China 13%, UK 4.7%, whereas India has a share of 3.1% among G7 countries. And again, India's per capita emission is even around 2 ton per capita.
These historical emissions on the climate finance, 100 billion, has been spoken for a long, long time. The last 10-15 years, we have seen that these issues have been hotly debated. But unfortunately, in Glasgow, what I am hearing from my friends there, and also from the different bulletins which come, the negotiations are not moving ahead at all. The cover note for the Glasgow conference, which is a political statement in which the countries are expecting that 100 billion would be a commitment from public funded resources, and there will be money, adequate money for adaptation also. There is no consensus so far. On climate finance, one of the issues that the European Union has raised is that adaptation money cannot be quantified. We cannot give how much money is needed for adaptation, even though UN as well as different agencies have said that a certain amount of money can be provided to adaptation, because you know that how much money is needed to rehabilitate people because of climate change caused, induced cyclone, flooding, or flash floods. So if you see, I think that the negotiations are stuck. Like all the COPs, we are waiting for the last 2 or 3 days to push on the agenda. But from the Indian point of view, we have clearly said the negotiations that we need to have a clear roadmap for providing climate finance, unlike the last 10 years when there was no roadmap, there was no financing. By 20, only $76.5 billion through all the sources were given, including the private one, which is very less. So, Dr. Panigri, I wanted to ask you one thing, that, the developing countries, so many have committed to net zero, so many have given their higher NDCs, but the rich countries on the finance are not very committal. So do you think that climate finance can be a cause for Glasgow conference not delivering on the promise?
That is really a matter of great concern. And you are very correct. Deadly situation has been created. Nobody is moving further, and things has come to a standstill. Because even I remember during negotiation, during COP21 at Paris, there was a lot of resistance to introduce the words like equity, climate justice, and CBDR by the developed world.
Mr. Panigrahi, one more issue which I really think that if we see the net zero commitment given by different countries, US 250, many of the developed countries have given their thing to 250, China is to 2060, India 2070. And if you look at the climate action tracker, their report, latest one has come today, which clearly says with these commitments, the world is heading for at least 2.4, which is only 0.3 degree less than the earlier 2.7 the world was heading. It is not enough. It clearly shows that, US, Europe, the high energy intensity countries need to achieve net zero before 2040. And they have to provide climate finance to developing countries, especially like India, which is highly vulnerable to climate change. So do you think at Glasgow we'll be able to reach some sort of a conclusion on that? The roadmap would be, do you see that there will be a roadmap for climate finance, adaptation and loss and damage, which has not there been a text so far as much as it should have been, will be there in the final operational agreements for the Paris climate deal?
See, Chetan, the negotiations always happen like this. And very big promise. It starts with big promises and all that, with very good hope and all that. And immediately after 3-4 days, the stalemates, there are certain jargons which is debated again and again, and G77, G7, G20, and various forums keep arguing, and this. So finally, COP has to conclude. It has a fixed number of days, and it has to conclude with some agreement. So finally, what happens? Jargons from both sides are compromised, accepted, rejected, and some kind of consensus comes, and it is normally accepted. Where there are some rooms for the developing and some rooms for the developed country remains, which again gives input for the next COP to continue the negotiations. Negotiation doesn't end, and which really doesn't help us to achieve the things at the state we are required to, as you told, from 2.7 to 2.3 is nothing. So we need to have aggressive, not only commitment, but also actions. And for actions to happen, we need finance. And if developing, I have witnessed many of the developed world negotiators get furious, and they say, when we emitted, what, you all were sleeping? Who stopped you to emit, competing with us? And we are not responsible for that. And the planet is now cannot resist anything more. So it is all we have to do collectively. So there is nothing there is no point raging about the past, CBDR and all these things again and again. And we are not responsible if we are very inactive during that period. So I will not take a pessimistic view here. Anyway, COP 26 will come to, and it will have some credible, conclusive decisions. But I'm afraid 1.5 degree will remain a dream. Even below 2 degree, to that extent, how much we are able to achieve, that is remains to be seen. And in this negotiation text, there will be words from both the side will find place.
With this, thanks a lot, Dr. Panigrahi.
Thank you, Chetan.
NASA's SpaceX Crew 3 astronauts were launched into orbit heading to the International Space Station on Wednesday. NASA, in a statement, said that the international crew of astronauts were launched by the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. The crew comprises NASA astronauts Raja Chari, Tom Marshburn and Kayla Barron, as well as the European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer. With this, the crew begins a 6-month science mission on the space station. A total of 15 films are lined up for the international competition at the 52nd International Film Festival of India, which will be held in Goa. The best of the feature-length fiction films from all over the world are selected to compete in the section. A report.
The International Competition section is a prestigious section of the festival that features some of the best films of the year. 15 films will compete for the coveted Golden Peacock and other awards this year. Danish World War II epic Into the Darkness won the top honor at the 51st IFFI held in January this year. The movies that are part of the lineup this year include Any Day Now by Hemi Ramazan and Charlotte by Simon Franco, Godavari by Nikhil Mahajan, Me Vasant Rao by Nipun Avinash Dharmadhikari, and Semkor by Amy Barua are the India entries to the competition. Once We Were Good For You by Branko Schmidt and The Dome by Roman Vasyanov, among others. The Golden Peacock awarded to the best film carries a cash prize of 40 lakh rupees to be shared equally between the director and the producer. The best director, best actor male and female will receive the Silver Peacock. A special jury award will also be given to a film or an individual for their outstanding contributions. Anuja Kumar for World News.
In the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, chasing a target of 177 runs, Australia were 127 for 5 wickets in 16 overs against Pakistan in the second semi-final at Dubai International Cricket Stadium when reports last came in. Earlier put into bat first, Pakistan set a target of 177 runs for Australia. For Pakistan, opener Rizwan Top scored with 67 runs, while Fakhar Zaman made 55 runs. For Australia, Mitchell Starc took two wickets. New Zealand has already stormed into the final after beating England by 5 wickets at Abu Dhabi on Wednesday. All India Radio is broadcasting ball-by-ball commentary of the World Cup.
And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Sputnik News writes, scientists warn that Earth could face internet apocalypse due to cannibal solar storms. Khaleej Times reports, Indian Pakistani expats request end to rapid PCR testing in the UAE. Financial Times writes, Twitter sets up crypto team to explore decentralized apps. The Globe and Mail says, Afghan interpreters in Canada reunited with soldiers they helped, new lives and new comradeship await. The Guardian reports, US-China deal on emissions welcomed by global figures and climate experts. The Himalayan Times writes, Nepal's coronavirus caseload reached over 816,000 on Thursday. The Washington Post reports, Democrats' lofty tax agenda impeded by resistance from within. The Wall Street Journal writes, Elon Musk sells around $5 billion in Tesla stock. South China Morning Post reports, India-Sri Lanka monsoon rains kill 41 people according to authorities. And Ceylon Today writes, New Gazette requires prior approval for public gatherings. Now a quick look at the headlines once again. India reiterates continued support, including humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. New Delhi conveys strong protest on China's illegal construction activities along the border areas. China and US agree to boost climate cooperation. India issues new guidelines for international arrivals. NASA and SpaceX launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station. 15 films announced for the international competition at the 52nd International Film Festival of India to be held in Goa. And in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, second semi-final underway between Pakistan and Australia in Dubai. India is celebrating the 152nd birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Poland on their National Day. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.